Hello.
Hello. Hello, everybody. It's Thursday, and this is Trekker's Delight. We're going to review episode 6 of season 5 of Star Trek Discovery, Whistle Speak. So this is
This is the intro starting, I suppose.
I'm sorry. There was like a brief pause, and I was just like, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
okay. So Will hasn't watched today's episode, so he's going to be hiding in the background. So I guess you might as well, Jason. Go ahead.
Apparently, he's got all the controls. But before we start, are we just gonna, roll the footage?
Yeah.
Let it get started, and then we get it started. So here it is, everybody. We're gonna roll this intro, and then we're gonna get right into Star Trek Discovery Season 5, Episode 6. Hit it. Every other vote.
I mean, I just want to know what we're going to be ready. Oh, wait, we're going live.
Here we are. Welcome once again to Trekker's Delight.
Like, literally, my mic falls down just as we go live. Hi, everybody!
Why is that person not even moving behind you?
That's what you're paying attention to?
On a scale of 1 to 10.
Oh my god, no.
Love that baseball and the teacup, like clearly TNG DS9 fans. So.
Which was a nice touch.
The moans.
The moan.
No, everybody, this is actually one of the main screenwriters for Prodigy, so we are super excited to hear from you. And
No one
also,
listens.
I'm a little embarrassed for being this critical.
Man, I really love that intro.
All right, so welcome. It is May 2nd, 2024. We are in the final month of new Star Trek Discovery. Once this month is over, that'll be it for Disco, as it only has 4 episodes left after tonight, which will round up on May 30th, being the end.
I didn't know that perspective of it. Did you put in those terms?
Well, when you consider some of the beats of this episode, the fact that they didn't know this was going to be the final season, there was been a lot of things in some of the episodes that either they went back and added or they just there are references back to season 1, there are references back to earlier seasons that a final season you would expect to do. So it's kind of surprising. But I'm your host tonight, Keith F. Shelvin. Joining me as regularly as Jason McCammon. Will Wofford's here in the background making noise. So if any of us shout out uncontrollably, it's because Will kicked us with something or threw something at us from Arkansas. But all right, so tonight's episode is Whistle Speak. Like we said, it's 6 episodes, season 5. It picks up where we left off last week in Mirrors, where you have the ISS Enterprise is gone now, and they found a vial with some strange liquid in it with a marking on the side, and they're trying to science the shit out of it to figure out what exactly this vial is. They run every single kind of analysis, and it's just distilled water. So they're stuck on it. Burnham hits on maybe it's possibly a historical or archaeological reference. It could be, is it from an arid planet where distilled water was important or something 800 years ago? And
Where they had to pull it out of the sky. They would have had to pull it out of the sky. It had to be somewhere that water came from the sky.
Yeah. She goes to beam away because nobody walks on Discovery anymore, and ends up back in the White Room in the Matrix with Dr. Kovic, who keeps on reminding us that he is actually a 21st century man by wearing his glasses and using a legal pad, to make a note
from Staples, probably.
Yes, as he said, he loves to touch the paper, and it is a true 21st century legal pad.
Well,
yes, we know.
I'll
David
get on
Cronenberg.
what a legal pad in 400 years would look like later.
Yeah. But we now have the list of all the members of the secret scientific community. We knew about Janal, we knew about Dr. Cho, we knew about the Romulan scientist. Now we get to know about a Denobulan scientist in this episode. That Denobulan, Dr. Marina Derricks. And that's the one that they seem to decide on is most likely going to be the one that goes to the water, because Marina Derricks did help build towers to help to control rainfall on Denobula. Of course, the Denobulans were first introduced in the pilot episode of Star Trek Enterprise, Broken Bow, with Dr. Phlox, who joined us for that series as the ship's medic. And they've been referenced here and there since then. Lower Decks has had a few Denobulan characters, and we did have the one Denobulan officer in Prodigy, but we haven't had any Denobulans on screen since Enterprise. But so then they figure out, okay, is there planets that this doctor, this scientist had built towers in order to control rainfall? And yes, there is a planet called Hell No. It almost sounds like saying hell no.
Right.
It's a planet that had it's pre-warp, pre-industrial, so any type of visit would have to be done in secret. So of course the Discovery jumps right into upper orbit and decides to get as close as it can without being seen, forgetting entirely that it has a cloaking device. So and of course, as we know from the ongoing series, it would be Burnham beaming down to the surface and bringing with her Tilly, as Tilly was able to track down some of the information about the Denobulan scientist and would be able to work with this tower, which is actually hidden in a giant rock formation, almost like it's right out of Avatar, except it's not floating. So we found a planet where there's only one section of green, and it's just around that tower, which they call the Great Summit. And the rest of the world is encased in dust. We get the reason for the name of the episode, Whistle Speak, because the people of this planet predominantly speak in whistles. Now, they do have a language for regular conversation, but for long distance talk, they whistle. Which is quite nice to think about, except for how many people can't whistle.
I thought it was R2D2 at first.
Yeah, there were definitely strong R2D2 references here, just in the tone. But there were no beeps; it was just whistles.
Right.
So, in addition to that's storyline A, is Tilly and Burnham going down to the surface. Storyline B is Adira gets their first chance to serve on the bridge. Apparently, they had mentioned to Rayner that they would like to have a shot on the bridge. So Rayner said, "Well, how about today?" And so we got Adira at the science station under Rayner's command, which definitely was not prepared for, but they're going to give it a try. And then we have storyline C, which is Colbert continuing to deal with his issues from having gone through Vajantara with Janal in the episode a couple weeks ago. It's trying to figure out his feelings, and it's a case of not that he feels like there's something wrong. In fact, it almost feels too good. So he of course, will try to figure out his way around that and reach out to whoever he can to get information. So on the surface, you have Burnham and Tilly dressed in the garb of the people, with the interesting design on their upper nose. So it's not nose ridges; it's something in the middle of the forehead at the nose.
It's almost like just a tattoo.
Yeah, but this is a deeply spiritual people. They consider the Great Summit their major religious temple. It turns out that there were 5 of these weather towers existing, but 4 of them no longer work.
I call them seating, water seating.
Right. So you have people who had gotten out of the dust, making their way to the summit, almost like a pilgrimage. And of course, Tilly and Burnham join that group. They come upon an older woman who's covered in dust and who has a coughing problem. They get close to the summit, and the older woman collapses. Burnham and Tilly, they are using subcutaneous communicators, and Adira. They had a quick line about how Adira uploaded a retinal tricorder, so that they're able to tricord scan just using their eyes. So that's really something you wish they would have had whenever dealing with a pre-technology civilizations in episodes past. But so Tilly and Burnham are trying to see if they can save the woman. They realize they can't use the technology, so Burnham just goes to start patting her on the back, and that's when the shaman or priest or whichever you want to call him comes up and says, "Yes, keep doing that." And then they use harmonics of bowls around her to summon the dust out of the woman and restore her breathing. But in doing that, they also cause Burnham to pass out. So Burnham awakes. They're at this small encampment at the base of a summit, and they're learning about the traditions of these people. And one of those traditions is you can only enter the temple if you have completed the run. And Burnham immediately jumps in. Yes, let's do it. I'm here. I'm doing it. And of course, she just happens to inspire 6 or 7 others to do it along with her. And of course, Tilly's going to be doing it, as well as the daughter of the religious leader. And she was actually the one whistling that beckoned them to the encampment. Back on Discovery, you have Adira trying to, figure out how to get into this summit because it has a force field around it that's keeping them from being able to beam in. They're figuring out that there must be some sort of control interface.
And she's doing this very confidently, I might add.
Yeah, in other words, not at all.
Right.
Then, of course, you have Colbert that's decided that is trying a new way to deal with his grief and his search for wanting by reaching out to his grandmother. Of course, that's been over 900 years, so it is a holodeck projection of his grandmother. And what's nice is we have this wonderful moment of Colbert speaking Spanish to his abuela and discussing recipes and getting her advice. And of course, she lets him in a secret that whenever they would cook together, it would come out horrible. So she would send him off to take a nap and then replicate the meal for when he woke up, because the stuff they were cooking would never come out right. But she herself is a doctor. And so he was ready to quit the program, and then he goes back and tries again and speaks to his abuela about the feelings within him. And she encourages him that he needs to do some deep medical scans as a man of science. So he goes to Stamets to get Stamets to help him do the scan. They go to sickbay, and it turns out there's nothing wrong with him. And not that anything feels wrong. As he says, everything just feels right, which is weird for him. And he continues trying to figure out. And then, of course, they're continuing to wait for some news from Tilly and Burnham from the surface. Locke and Maul are being pursued by the USS Lockerer. Now, if I was wondering, the Lockerer is a reference to cinematographer J.P. Lockerer, who worked on Discovery for several years and passed away, unfortunately, in 2022. So another case of the show honoring some of the people that made the show possible with ship names and other things. So he's trying, Book is, wanting for something to do, wants to reach out to the Lockerer, wants to give them advice on dealing with Maul and Locke, and Colbert just tells him, calm the F down, find something else because you're nervous, take a break, take this time to recharge, go find something to do. So, Book disappears, goes to calm down. Back on the surface, it's time for the run. We find out that the run is inspired by of course, by tradition of a woman who made the run on her own, having been without water, so thoroughly thirsty and dried out, making this run having to ignore offers of water along the way, and then even to be tempted by the gods with water to carry for the final few feet of the walk of the race, carrying a bowl of water. And whoever wins the race is the one who will get to enter the temple and hopefully then see the gods. So on the race, Tilly is keeping up. You know, Burnham. Then Burnham notices some strange colored moss, and she surmises it's because the radiation from the control mechanism has been, leaking out and causing the moss to change color, and it's quite a bit of moss, surprisingly. So she goes back in the woods, and Tilly continues on, aiming to win this race. It comes between her and Rafa, the daughter of the religious leader, and they get towards the end, and they reach the point where they are handed the bowls of water, and they must carry it the last bit, resisting temptation. Tilly has almost passed out a number of times. Rafa even saved her from almost collapsing once. So then they're going the last bit of the way. Rafa, unfortunately, trips over herself and spills the water. Her father says, "Oh, you are now disqualified because you cannot cross the finish line with an empty bowl." Tilly stumbles back to her and pours some of the water from her bowl into Rafa's bowl so Rafa can finish it, because she knows how important this exercise is to Rafa. They cross the finish line, and they make their way into the temple. Meanwhile, Burnham is opening up this control interface, and it's some good 24th century technology. We have isolinear chips, auxiliary power, and all kinds of interesting graphics that we would have been very comfortable with on TNG and Deep Space Nine. You have Adira giving her advice on, basically unplug this isolinear chip. And do you see the red chip? Yes, I see lots of them. Well, in the left corner. And, the moving around of isolinear chips that never quite made sense on the 90s Trek, but that's what she's going to try, because she has to get the interface work again without shutting down the tower, because if she shuts down the tower, then that last section of that planet will get encased in dust, and it could kill everyone that's there. You had the scan being done. We talked about the scan of Culber. Culber tracks down Book, where he's playing video games in one of the shuttles, because this feels right to him. He doesn't want to do video games on the holodeck because he wants to actually be in control of the ship.
He's playing like a Vectrex version of Space Invaders from like the early 80s.
Yeah. So, but then Culber shows up and brings him a plate of the food that he was talking to his abuela about making, and they share it, and they just have this moment. And Culber's basically conflicted on whether this is a spiritual awakening, and he's not someone who was religious anyway, and obviously Booker was very religious of his Bajan upbringing. So essentially, it's just trying to understand his feelings of religion. In fact, that's pretty much covers most of this episode with religious beliefs, whether it be Culber and Booker or Burnham and Tilly dealing with the people on the planet. So Tilly gets into the temple, and in there with Rafa, they're exhausted, but have meets there. They are welcomed into this temple by the order, and then the group says their goodbyes because they will be making this noble sacrifice to the gods so that the rain may come. To which Tilly goes, "Wait, what? Sacrifice?
What?
Yeah." The Discovery still can't beam anyone out of the tower, but now that Burnham has gotten the controls working, they can beam her in. The cleric is in a antechamber of the temple, apparently running the device. And Burnham says, "Just beam me in there. I don't care if it's a violation of the Prime Directive. I got to save Tilly's life." So she beams in and basically gives away the show that these aren't gods. This was a gift. This was an alien species created these towers. It's not that the gods were mad and shut down 4 of the towers. It's that the towers need to be maintained, and nobody was coming back to maintain them, and nobody bothered to teach any of you all how to maintain them. So inside, Rafa and Tilly are near passing out because this is like a vacuum chamber, but the tower is fully warming up. And while near passing out, Tilly and Rafa are leaning against the wall, and Rafa tells Tilly how the different things written on the wall, including the runes that seem to be a numbering system. And it shows that this tower was actually Tower 2, and that Towers 1 and 3 through 5 are the ones that are no longer working. And Tilly looks up, and the rune for Tower 5 looks strangely familiar. So finally, Burnham is able to appeal to the cleric, understanding that it's not that his gods don't exist, it's that his gods didn't create the tower. And so you should thank the gods for sending the Denobulans to have helped you. So they're able to get into the chamber. Colbert and other medical staff from Discovery beam down and save Rafa and Tilly, which point Tilly points out to Burnham about the 5th rune, and it is the symbol on the side of the vial of distilled water. So they now know that the next piece of the puzzle is hidden on the 5th tower. And as they do this, though you can hear the rain coming outside, Rafa is upset that she doesn't get to see the gods, and of course her mother, who had died years before. But the fact, knowing that they are getting the rain without the sacrifice, she's happy to hear that. The father is happy to know that he hasn't lost his daughter. And Burnham promises to teach them how to maintain the towers so that the planet can continue to survive. So, get back to the ship. Adira is still a little bit unsure of themselves, but trying. Colbert seems comfortable with his new found spirituality, and they have gotten the 5th piece, which points to a bit of what was it? A bit of poetry, or what was it? Something from Beta Z, which of course we had a reference to Beta Z back on when they were finding the 1st piece on the planet back in the 2nd episode of the season, when it was just Burnham and Saru. But before they can go to Beta Z or wherever that next piece may go, the Locker have caught Locke and Maul. And so the Discovery is being called back to Federation headquarters to deal with this situation. And that's where we leave. The planet Helmno is left with the rains falling down, and you can hear R2-D2 whistling as the Discovery jumps away.
So, Prime Directive broken.
Yep.
Rayner gives good, confidence in his employees, and Dr. Cobra is feeling good all the time. So basically, he's walking around high all the time. So it's like, I don't get this. What's going on? I'm really surprised that they didn't bring back the whistling for something in the end.
Well,
she hummed
at
the tune
the very
from her...
end we had a whistle, but yeah.
No, the very end, but like to solve the problem of the episode, right? I'm really surprised that didn't come into play later on. She hummed a tune from her mother, but that's not the same thing at all.
Oh yeah, that's how how Burnham was able to convince the cleric to listen to her, was had Rafa speaking to Tilly, humming a tune, and then Tilly passing that along, over the communicator to Burnham, and Burnham then singing it to the man to show that they are
right.
They have technology.
It's like he kept saying, "What are you doing? It's technology, man." It's like, what? How are you doing that? It's technology, man. It's like, what is technology? It's a machine. Like how you have to wonder what the first word "machine" was used for like common people, like a wooden cog,
Well, the simple machines, like a ramp, a lever, the things we learned.
So you would call a lever a machine?
Yes.
What a regular person. I mean, do you think a regular person back when it was created would call that a machine?
In in English culture, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, anything that assisted a human to do any action. So a pulley, a lever, a ramp. Those are all called simple machines. And we learned this. I remember learning this in 4th grade science class, man.
No, I know that we call it that.
Yeah,
I
but
didn't know if back then they called it that, or if it was just something like we call science, but back then they didn't call science. They called it. Well, it might have been natural science, but they had what's the one before chemistry? Um,
biology.
philosopher's stone type talk.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I mean, the dictionary, Oxford definition, an apparatus using or applying mechanical power and having several parts. So that's
Right. I know the definition has. I'm just talking about the common person. I mean, I
yeah.
guess it's a weird question. Alchemist is the word I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I was surprised at that. I thought this episode was a little slow, but I actually kind of liked it as it moved on. But I mean, should we talk about the elephant in the room here, which
Go for
is
it.
the prime directive? So you can't do too much prime directive talk in Star Trek, right? I wonder what captain would have chosen that same thing to do, but you also have to consider who is at stake, right?
Well, Kirk definitely would have done this,
Right.
just as he did with the people in the Apple, but telling them they now have their freedom and you're gonna like it.
Right. Picard, I'm not really sure. He probably would not have. He was more of a stickler for the prime directive.
Although this episode did have strong 90s Trek vibes to it.
It did. I mean, even with that, it reminded me of like Sharzanka and all that stuff with her planet. Janeway would have did it. She would have broken it in a second.
As we saw her do many times
right
across Voyager. Well, just the fact that planet has already been messed with by the Denobulans.
It's already broken.
Yeah. The prime directive's already been broken.
Well, they do it in different levels. Sometimes it is any sort of interference, like even steering an asteroid away from a planet to save it,
Yeah.
Sometimes it's okay, you can steer the asteroid, but you just can't let the people know that you're the one that steered the asteroid.
Right. Well, yeah, like what we saw in the very, very first episode of Discovery, when you had Burnham and Georgiou on the planet because there was excess radiation from a mining operation nearby. The water dried up, so they have to shoot the phaser at the exact pulse rate to break through to the water table below, or that culture will be destroyed. And of course, but they walk past right through the village, and within seconds of them breaking and the water coming out, one of the creatures from that planet comes over. So they were seen.
But I don't think they were evolved enough to tell stories about it.
Yeah.
But right. So that was not, according to them, that was not breaking the prime directive.
Right.
So, it's a little iffy sometimes.
It's bending the prime directive, as Kirk would say.
Right. I was surprised that Burnham was like the first one to give up and be like, I can't do this shit, because usually she's the strongest at everything.
No, it's because she found the moss. She quit the race.
No, this was. I mean, it was before that. She was the first one that had the rest. She stopped before that.
Oh yeah,
and she rested. And I was surprised. Oh, they had Burnham stop and not Tilly stop. It reminded me to the episode with Mud, where she's running around, and she's.
Yeah, we had that was one of the callbacks I was talking about. That was interesting because you had that Burnham and Tilly racing on Discovery in the early episodes, and Burnham is, Tilly is barely keeping up, and then by the time the next season, when she's in the command training program, she won the race on Discovery for the trainees, and so it's continuing to show that her physical ability, despite how many people continue to knock her online, complaining about her
weight,
her physique. Yeah, she was able to keep going and powered through it, and she knew she had to once Burnham found found the different colored moss. So she knew she needed to win the race to get into the room.
Yeah, no, I got it once it was all said and done. I was just, surprised because usually the way they write it is that, Burnham would be the one, the stronger one.
Yeah.
Mary Sue style or whatever. But yeah, I thought it was actually pretty cool. They scanned it. Well, like the eye scanners, right?
Yeah.
Those are eye tricorders.
The retina tricorders.
Retina tricorders. It was something new, but which is kind of cool. I'm not really sure how they turn them on and off, but they just sort of pop on.
It's just like how do they talk to the transporter about where they want to go? There's something there that we don't know.
They still, and every time they do it now, I'm just like, what are they doing?
Yeah. It is interesting that Burnham tried to beam away at the beginning of the episode. And she got sucked into the Matrix instead.
Right? Was that by that she didn't try to do that? She just
she was going to the bridge and COVID took her to the Infinity Room instead.
Yeah. So I don't think that paper would last 900 years.
I remember Time War. He probably went back in time for the 21st century, stopped by a Staples, bought a stack, and came back. Yeah, I can tell you for a fact, paper would not last 800.
They go through great lengths to keep paper from 500 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The Declaration of Independence,
That's not paper.
That's not, what is that?
Canvas.
Is it canvas?
Yeah.
So it's mostly,
but things there are some things on paper. Declaration of Independence is 230 years ago, or 200, almost 250. But when I talk about the Gutenberg Bible at the library, the one that we have that is at the Library of Congress that is complete is on vellum. The paper copies that were made, there were 115 paper copies made by Gutenberg on his printing press. Those are mostly gone, because that is 500 years.
Yeah. So, but Kubrick, what's his name? Kubrick?
Kovic.
He's probably a pretty smart guy. He could figure all that out.
Yeah. I did love the gag on how he feels about being in the room, and Burnham says, I assumed you were born here.
Right. It's an interesting room though for them to go to for meetings, right?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's extremely easy for them to do. Just a white room, and at least they had a desk this time. Previously, it was just them standing there. But we didn't see it until this season. They didn't have it in previous seasons.
And we've never seen the actual mechanism that makes that work, right? There's a white room thing, or what they're using to make that work. So basically, he's intercepting her transporter. He's just waiting for her to transport.
Yeah, I'm beginning to think that it's. Remember how at the Card season 1, when he's in the office with Data, though they're actually within the artificial thing,
right?
I tend to think that that's what this room must be. It must be some artificial space. It's not an actual existing room.
So so you don't think she's actually transported to an existing room? You think it's some sort of digital space?
Yeah.
That they're inside, which
like the Matrix,
which is a whole nother level of something else, because now you're changing something both physical and mental into something digital.
Well, that's what transporters do.
Not on that aspect. They're not.
It's breaking the body down and turning it into energy and transmitting it along.
Right, but this is turning it into a digital format of you that actually works inside of a digital space. So it's not like you're living inside the transport. When you're inside the transporter, you're in a state of non-existence, right? Because your matter, your matter is not put together. It's not working at a state.
We've had episodes where we had people talk about their experience while in the transporter. I mean,
inside the transporter or during the transport?
Inside the transporter, because remember we had the one episode with Barkley in which there were the creatures that he saw during the transport, and then we've had several times now where people have been stored in the transporter buffer.
Yes, they're stored in the transporter buffer, but they have no memory of that. And I think Barkley was all that was happening during transport, not actually while he's in the buffer of the transport. That's what I'm saying. So
okay.
Nobody's been living in the buffer of a transporter. They exist.
No
in
one's
stasis.
experiencing life. It's yeah,
they're not experiencing life. This is you actually experiencing life inside of a digital space, and I'm not sure if they've ever really done that before. Besides this, they've come close to it, but I don't think they've actually.
The closest I can think of is with Picard, but that was, of course, consciousness and the memory engram for data. Yeah.
I don't know. That's just a whole nother level of thing, but still cool in a way. I think I still like the idea of the room. Of course, it's. I think about it like it'd be like weird to be in that room to just like live in a no boundary, infinite.
Well, I don't think anyone's like really hanging out in there. I mean, even Kovic said he's only there for the moment.
Right. She's like, I thought you were born here.
Yeah.
So there was one moment, right, where I forget the people's name. Who was it Rava, who was in there with Tilly?
Yeah, Rafa.
So they open the doors. She's about to die. Cobra comes and gets her. Her dad is talking to Burnham for a while. And then Cobra is like, hey, she's okay, bro. And then then Burnham says, they're okay and they would like to see their father. She referenced them as a reference. Well, I guess I have to say them as a they. And I thought that was interesting because they didn't give any prelude.
I did not notice that
whatsoever to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, watch that again. She says they would like to see their father, and I'm like, they, and then it's like, yeah, it's just the one girl. So it's like they kind of touched on that, but didn't really expound on that whatsoever, unless I missed something during conversation earlier in the episode, which could have happened.
Yeah.
I was eating nachos.
Yeah, I was eating breakfast while I watched. Yeah, I didn't notice that. But, yeah. I feel like if it were Kirk instead of Burnham, Kirk would have tried to play up that. Oh, no, I'm a god. Yeah, I'm actually, I'm actually a god. I was sent here by the gods. So yeah, God.
God. And yeah, and still we have another civilization, which is actually pretty common as far as we know, civilizations doing something that they don't need to do to appease a god. Sacrifice being one of them. I mean, it's pretty fluid throughout all our civilizations on Earth that we know of, that even before any of them had communication with each other.
Yeah, and I think it's entirely possible that they knew that the Denobulans actually introduced themselves and built the towers, and that the people of Helmno are got to meet the Denobulans, and they just assumed the Denobulans were gods.
Oh, perhaps.
And it's 800 years. I mean, we had that episode of Voyager where you had the planet that was hyper sped up, in which they considered the Voyager as some special thing, and then it was episode of the Orville copied the idea where they beamed down to a planet and one of Kelly, the first officer, is thought to be a god, and they see that in moving forward by the centuries, and so 800 years. I could definitely see them considering Denobulans to be gods. Just as we know from the original series that the Greek gods were actually aliens that visited Earth.
Yep. And Stargate.
Yep.
I wonder though, are they going to fix all the rest of the towers? You know,
they beamed away without doing it. I was kind of surprised that they only did the one, and we know they went to the 5th tower.
Right.
See, ideally there should be the Cerritos should be around any time now to come and fix the other towers.
Right.
Yeah, send the California class on that one.
You know what I noticed? This isn't Discovery based. Maybe it is. In Star Trek, a lot they say like something happens, and they're like, "Damage reports coming in, sir." You know. Yeah. When have you ever seen somebody give a damage report?
I've seen Scotty in Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan give a damage report.
Like, say it, but nobody types it in. So somebody reads it out on the computer, and they're.
Well, we've heard people calling it in. It's like that,
but not like. Worf will look down and be like, "All decks reporting in."
Yeah,
like there's a readout of it, but no, I've never seen anybody say, "Oh, I got to give this digital." Oh, what would be great? It would be a great Lower Decks episode, but it's not going to happen. If Boimler was put on a damage report duty, or all of them were put on damage report duty, and that was just like the whole episode. Because I know actually Boimler would hate it. He'd be like, "Why am I doing this?" I think they could have so much fun with that.
Oh yeah, Rutherford would be running around trying to fix everything. Tendi would be running around trying to heal everybody, and Mariner would be causing some of the damage.
Right. Rutherford would be trying to fix it before, so he wouldn't have to say that there was a report a damage in his area. Right.
Oh, I could see that like being a way of hazing the lieutenant junior grades, having them go from section to section. And if you have, we're gonna have the mock exercise, and you're gonna try to have as little damage as possible.
That would be awesome. We should call him.
It's too late.
It's already anything that's going is already written, right?
Yep, it's already written. It's recording.
It could be a short deck.
Short track, yeah. There was another reference in this episode that I was not surprised they made. Because you had the moment of Burnham and Tilly talking, and Burnham asking about Tilly's time at the academy, and Burnham referencing when she was studying about these people, she was calling back to her time at the Vulcan Science Academy, and Tilly straight up says, "You should join us on the Starfleet Academy."
Right.
I was like, not at the academy,
in
the Starfleet Academy.
So maybe something's going to happen.
Come on. Because we know the next show, which is going to film on the same stage we found out this week, is called Starfleet Academy, set in that time period. So.
I think they revealed... Is it raining? Yeah. I think they put Tilly in the Starfleet Academy too early, because they literally... She's in the Starfleet Academy, but she's at the whole season on Discovery. They should have just did it at the end of this season. That way they can go to something else, because there's kind of no reason for them to have already done it when she's not at the academy at all.
The reason they did that last season was because Mary Wiseman had something else. She had a filming conflict. So she had to go do that, and so they needed a way to note that she was gone. And just like how they've had to do with Owo and Detmer this season.
Yeah, where the hell are they at?
Well, we know from last week, remember, they're taking the ISS Enterprise back to Federation headquarters.
Yeah, but they also weren't in that episode.
Yeah. I was able to track this down that during that filming, the actress who plays Owo, Oyin Oladeo, she was filming a movie. and Emily Coots, who plays Detmer, was filming ads for an Olay ad campaign. So they both had conflicts. The key thing to remember about those, basically the bridge crew beyond the core group, you never saw them in the opening credits because they were never main cast. They were always day players.
Yeah.
So they had conflicts, so they had to replace them with other people. And you notice Reese wasn't in this episode. So
right.
Yeah, so he had something else that was going on.
And Bryce hasn't been in there for a while.
Yeah, Bryce was only in the one episode this season. Ronnie Rowe. He's on another TV show. That he left. That's why he had to leave last season. What's the other show? The Porter. He was filming that during season 4, so that's why he had to leave and be replaced by Lieutenant Christopher.
Right.
And Sarah Middich, who played Lieutenant Nielsen, got another show, so they, bit of dialogue that she's been transferred to the Voyager. So, if this wasn't the final season, there's definitely been strong vibes of this being the final, with people going off to do different things. And
well, I wonder how they're going to round it out. So they got 4 episodes left. Yep. They got 2 pieces to get, right?
1 piece.
Just one piece.
Just 1 piece left. There were 2 pieces left before this episode.
So they got a lot to do after they get the
and as
final
we found,
piece.
And the remaining episodes, next week's episode, which of course we're dealing with Locke and Maul at Federation headquarters, is called Araga, which is the blood curse that's been put on Locke that we found out about last week. Episode 8 is called Labyrinths, so maybe we have some mazes going on there. Episode 9, which will air on the 23rd, is called Lagrange Point. And then the final episode of the series, Life Itself, airing on May 30th.
Okay.
Anything else about this episode you want to bring up?
Sure. Let's talk about that whole system of, well, I guess, like we said, any culture is going to make up something about a deity or spiritual. But I was trying to figure out, so the room had to be sucked into a vacuum had to be created. We never saw anything come out of the tower, right?
No.
They just said, okay, it's going to rain. But I thought part of the mechanism was that had to be a vacuum for that to work. So I was just a little confused about how that went about.
Yeah, we didn't see the air getting sucked out, but
right.
But they talked about.
But they didn't talk about it. It was nice from Discovery's point of view to say, okay, we see this happening. Whether it's silver nitrate going into the sky or whatever, we see, okay, the process is happening, because they never created the vacuum like they said it had to be. That's all I'm saying. So
yeah,
that's kind of weird.
Well, we're so used to seeing the perception of a vacuum being created, the air blowing out of the room,
right,
being blown out.
Also, all that was made of stone. No rubber seals in that room.
Yeah.
So, good luck creating a vacuum.
Yeah, for a seemingly advanced culture like the Denobulans, that was an interesting design choice for their tower. If they didn't want them to believe that this was some sort of temple, then they did not design that room properly, because that was very much a temple motif. And there's no way in 800 years that they, the people put up those stones, because it would have kept the thing from working. So,
right. So literally they didn't have to do the ritual at all, right?
Nope.
They could have just went up there and turned the little lever and closed the room.
Yeah.
And let the thing happen, and then open the room back up.
Yep. But it's a case of they didn't know. They had made their way in. Someone made their way in on their own. The one that led to the story, which led to the creation of the thing.
Somebody had to be there to close the room.
Yeah.
I see a loophole.
Well, and that was earlier in the use of the tower when it was still fully operating. So it could be that you didn't need a person then, because remember, Burnham had to fix the controls.
Right.
Because it was supposed to be able to operate on its own with regular maintenance. And obviously that, like we said, that maintenance wasn't done. And obviously when that person went through, they didn't need someone operating the controls. And we didn't even see controls in that antechamber. He was just, he was on the floor praying because he was about to lose his daughter.
Well, there was one control under the rug, remember?
Yeah.
To open the door. That's the only control that we saw.
Yeah.
A big metal, object under the rug.
Right.
What was that lady doing at the beginning? The old lady who was about to die. She was dusting off something.
No, she came from the dust, the area outside of where the dust permeates the air.
Right. She was saying she was doing something out there.
Oh.
And that she said something about, that's why I say old people shouldn't be doing this or something like that.
Oh yeah, she had been doing something that caused her to be outside when you really shouldn't have been outside.
Right. I was trying to figure out what that was.
Yeah. Yeah. I should have watched it the second time. I didn't pick up on it.
Oh, I didn't have time. I started watching it at like 6:45. Something like that. I'm a working man.
Yeah, same here. But and of course, Memory Alpha hasn't updated with anything beyond the cast list currently. So, So I thought overall it was a good episode. Like I said, strong '90s Trek vibes, and also a bit of original Trek. If you take away the Culber storyline, it's basically an episode of TOS.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I checked it. It was 56 minutes long, and the average TOS episode was 50 minutes. So yeah, the Culber storyline was about 6 minutes.
Yeah. So yeah, what's with Culber and what's it Booker and Book getting a little more chummy than normal? They don't usually have that much screen time together or alone having conversations.
Well, what we know of Book, he is seemingly the most spiritual person on the ship.
Right.
Because I'm not sure of the counter religion, but we know the humans are particularly atheist. There might be some agnostic leanings, but for the most part, we see that. We don't know about other aliens and what their beliefs are, but we do know that the Quayshawn have their strong beliefs. So if anybody who wants to talk to about spirituality, Book would be the appropriate person.
So you would have, if you lived in that era, I'm not saying the era of Discovery, let's just say the era of, Voyager, TNG and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There are reports of so many different things, right? You would either believe there has to be a God because this is just, there are too many steps in this ability curve where they just keep more powerful, and they're and infinite diversity would say that has to exist, or you would say there is no all-powerful God because obviously it's just a bunch of aliens running around doing hocus pocus and whatnot.
Well, the whole storyline of this season is aliens running around doing hocus pocus. The progenitors seeding planets to create, the standard humanoid template that we saw throughout, 60 years of this franchise.
Right. I hope it's something good. Hope it's not a letdown.
Well, someone pointed out that on the poster for they put out official cast photos yesterday, and that included a poster with them on it, and there was a half circle over top of them with runes. So that was an interesting design choice, and people were wondering if will be something of the progenitor tech that we'll see going forward. And one thing that's interesting, the write-up for this episode definitely played up the fact of Burnham having to save Tilly from the civilization. So I definitely thought it was going to be something like Haven from season 1 of Next Generation, where Wesley got in trouble for trying to catch the ball,
tripping in the flowers.
Yeah.
Well, they certainly did not use the same clothing.
No.
That would have been in the same gaudy. Let's just wear
season
these
1 TNG. We just hand wave
gaudy clothes and let's just jog and smile.
Yeah.
and wear these clothes.
And wave that whole season away. Don't talk about Angel One. Don't talk about Code of Honor.
Nobody's saying
about Naked Now.
Hey, would you rather just go and have sex? No, let's just jog and smile. Wear these clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was definitely a director telling him what to do. Just so you know, in every shot, there's a director telling him what to do.
All right. Well, we're at 56 minutes. Will, you're still here, right? You jump on since we're not talking episode now.
Maybe not. He's gone. Are you still doing? Oh, do you got any news you want to do? You usually like to do something at the end.
A couple news things. Just want to see if Will is still here. Hide in the background.
He's asleep.
Oh yeah, must fall asleep. All right. So some of the news that came out, we did see the big announcement was Pinewood Studios in Toronto, where Discovery has filmed all 5 seasons. The stage is now been renamed the Star Trek stage. And
Nice.
They had a picture of the cast standing outside of it posing with it. So it's actually been named that for a while because obviously they didn't go back and get all in costume. Because even Doug Jones was back dressed up in makeup as Saru.
Mm-hmm.
So they made that change a year ago, and they just now announced it.
So hopefully they're going to continue to use that as a Star Trek stage?
Yeah, they said that it will now be the Starfleet Academy stage, and that they are now doing the building of the sets to start to do Starfleet Academy.
We mentioned that last week, sort of, how they had the ISS Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
And, as a throwback, and I was like, what would be great is they should have had a TNG Enterprise would be a nice throwback, but that would be like rebuilding an entire set from scratch and remodeling.
Yeah, why would you rebuild an entire set for only like 1.5 episodes, say, of season 3?
Right. So they'll use what they got.
No. Well, the problem with Picard, all seasons of Picard were filmed in California, not Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, Strange New Worlds is filmed in Toronto as well. So last week they went over to Strange New Worlds set, so that they could film all the scenes on the ISS Enterprise on the Strange New Worlds set.
Okay. I'm back, boys, is what Will says.
I see. One last bit of news, and it was at the beginning of the episode they did note the passing of John Trimble. We've talked in the past about the contribution of him and his wife, Bajot. Really, Star Trek has been both lucky and unlucky over the nearly 60 years now, but there's been at key moments individuals that have made Star Trek possible to go on.
What are those?
We would not have Star Trek were not for Lucille Ball, because she paid for the pilot.
Yes.
Paid for production. We wouldn't have it without Gene Roddenberry for creating the idea.
Absolutely.
We wouldn't have it without DC Fontana, because she the stuff that she did in helping write. But as far as those are people that made money or got paid for it. We would not have Star Trek today without John and Bajot Trimble.
Hey, look at that handsome fella.
Because John and Bajot, after Star Trek was canceled after season 2, original series, and John and Bajot started a letter writing campaign. This is pre-internet, This is, not with phone chains. This is with newsletters, mailing newsletters and mailers, getting letters sent in to NBC to get Star Trek picked up for a season 3, so that Star Trek would be eligible for not serialization. Syndication.
So he was the one that gave fans the both motivation and voice, because they those fans in that era happened to be the fuel for keeping Star Trek around.
Yeah.
And so you're saying he's the guy who...
Well, he and his wife, Bajot, you can't separate one from the other. They were a package deal on this. We unfortunately lost Bajot a few years ago, but John passed away this past week, and they did make sure to honor him at the beginning of the episode. But if not for John and Bajot Trimble, who never paid for this, we would not have Star Trek. We would not have had season 3 of the original series. We wouldn't have had animated series. We wouldn't have any of the movies, anything else, if it wasn't for their considerable efforts to save this show. And so now John Trimble is gone, and we should all make note of pretty much John and Bajot are the ultimate Star Trek fans.
Well, somebody needed to do that for Baywatch to keep that going.
No.
It's not the same thing.
Not even close.
Not even close.
Well, you got anything you want to say?
Well, we're talking to you.
I know, I'm here. Looks like y'all did pretty dope today. Don't really know what the plot of the story was. Gonna watch the episode now. Good to know those news updates though. That's really cool. And shout out to the 5 people apparently from Twitter that are watching this right now.
Ah, nice.
Yep.
In this episode, Stamets turn himself into a pickle. Pickle Stamets.
Thank you for watching tonight. Of course, this is broadcast out on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You'll be able to catch it on YouTube going forward. Please remember to like, and share, and comment. If you have your thoughts on this episode, put them in the comments below. If you like some of the stuff Jason and I were saying today, drop a like button. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you get updates when additional postings to the Trekkers Delight channel are available. We'll be back next Thursday night as we discuss episode 7 of season 5, Aragon, which is going to be a heavy lock and maul episode going back to Federation headquarters. So we take a break from the search next episode to deal more with character beats. So thank you all for watching today. Jason, Will, anything else you want to say?
Thank you all for coming out. God bless and good night.
Yeah, live long and prosper.
Wait, Jason, on a scale of 1 to 10, how serious are you being right now? I gotta know.
I'm serious, dude. You got
like 10 out of 10 serious, or picking on Michael serious? Which one?
There is no temperature in space. It's not cold.
What are you serious?
Okay, wait.
Who is? Oh dear God! It just got better.
Because you said his name.
Welcome to the party, Michael.
No, that is not how we're going to end the episode, because Keith actually has like a legitimate news update. He knows shit, and we should possibly convey that knowledge.
That's my favorite line. He knows shit.
It's just like a black and red mound. It's like,
why are you describing yourself?
What the hell?
Hello from Manny.
Hey, Virgil.
Hey,
Virgil.
welcome.
Hello, Virgil. Welcome. Who are you?
Who?